of the Rebbe Rashab, who brings from Kriyat Chaim, that the reason why Chamisha Asar B'Av is such a yontif, because it's Chamisha Asar B'Chodesh. Chamisha Asar is Kai Masira B'Ashlemusa. The 15th day of the month, that's when the moon is full. And since Yidden are compared to the moon, they mean the Levana, and we count mainly the Levana, we count our year by the moon. So it represents the Yidden. So when Kai Masira B'Ashlemusa represents the Yidden B'Shleimus, when the Yidden are B'Shleimus, which is when Mashiach will come. So that's why Tesvav B'Av is so special, because it's Kai Masira B'Ashlemusa, the month, the day of the month, which the moon is full. But the Rebbe Rashab asked the Kasha, the Rebbe brings in the Maimed, the Rebbe asked the Shaila, if it's because Tesvav B'Chodesh, why Dafke Ov? Should be every month. Should be Tesvav, should be a Yontif. The Peil Mamish, only Tesvav Nisan is a Yontif, Pesach, and Tesvav Tishrei is a Yontif. But the other Tesvav is not. And then the Kasha is even stronger. Even Lagabe Tesvav Nisan and Tesvav Tishrei, Mashma that Tesvav Ov is even greater than them. Because the Lashon in the Mishnah is there was no Yontif, means the other Yom Tov are not like Chamisha Asar B'Av. Why is the Maile? They're also Tesvav. What's the Maile? And in the Kudah, the Rebbe says, and this is written in the sicha, this is one of the main Kudas that the Rebbe has when the Geir Chamisha Asar B'Av, that what's the reason why Take Chamisha Asar B'Av is Chamisha Asar B'Chlal is a big special day. Kai Masira B'Ashlemusa. What's so special of Kai Masira B'Ashlemusa? The specialty is because the Levana was small. Let's say Yerida got smaller and smaller. And by a Yerida, the Tachlis is Yerida Tzerech Aliyah. And Tesvav in the month is the Aliyah after the Yerida. And since it's an Aliyah after the Yerida, and Yerida Tzerech Aliyah should be greater than before, so Tesvav represents a very high Aliyah. Should be higher than before. And for that statement that when the Aliyah, the Yerida is very big, the Aliyah after it is even bigger. The worse the Yerida is, the greater the Aliyah. And since which month has the greatest Yerida? Of, because of Tisha B'Av. So the Aliyah after Tisha B'Av is the greatest Aliyah. And therefore, Tesvav B'Av is the greatest Yontif, because the Tesvav of Kai Masira B'Ashlemusa after the Yerida of Tisha B'Av is the greatest. And then the Rebbe goes on more in the union of Tesvav, why Tesvav is such a great thing, Shaychus to Mashiach, is Tesvav. The Rebbe goes in because Tesvav is Yutke, Mashiach will come, there be Yutke, not Yutke, Vovke, be two Yutkes, a whole Arichas there, the Rebbe is Masber. But then the Rebbe has an interesting Shaila. If we compare the Aliyah that we have in Tesvav that represents the Aliyah of the Samikdash Ashlishi, the coming of Mashiach, to the fact that the Levana also has an Aliyah on Tesvav, it's not the same. The Levana didn't change Tesvav. When there was a Yerida, it wasn't the Pshat, there was no Levana, and on Tesvav you get the Levana. What happened before is the Gilui of the Levana was not there. Just say you couldn't see it. When the Levana was small, got smaller and smaller, until it got completely there, you couldn't see it at all. The Levana isn't there. The Levana is, you could see. It's there, but you couldn't see. So if you couldn't see, the only thing that happened on Tesvav, by the time you get Tesvav, now you could see the whole Levana. So it's not really something new that's happening. So how do we compare that to the union of Chamisha Asar B'Av, when there will be the Gilui of Mashiach? It's not going to be just a Gilui of something. It'll be seemingly a new thing. It'll be such great Giluyim that will be great Gilui Lakus, but it's not something that's there before. You just couldn't see it. Now you'll see it. It's a new thing that's going to happen. And since in Torah everything is Meduyik, so it has to be together. So the Rebbe says that the truth is that even by the Beis Hamikdash, it's also only going to be the Gilui of it, because Be'etzem it's there from before. From the moment the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, from that moment on, it says in Medrash, Neilat Mashiach Shel Yisrael. So B'meila, the union of Gilui, union of Mashiach, what Mashiach represents in the Beis Hamikdash Ashlishi, already happened then. Elamai, it was Behelim. And it had to be Behelim. If it wouldn't be Behelim, you couldn't have the Churban. So it was Behelim. And what's going to happen? Mashiach will come, it'll become Nisgala. So it's mamish, it fits exactly to the way it was, the way it's in the Moshel, that it's only the union of Gilui that we're missing, and that Gilui we're going to get just by the Levaner. Now, that's in the Maimer. In the Farbrengen of that Farbrengen, what the Rebbe explained was, he said, why do we make the Levaner itself? Why do we make such a big fuss? Tesvov, Kaim Mesira Bashlemusa, a big thing, when really this Kasha. See, in the Maimer, he asked the Kasha, how does it fit to the union of Mashiach? And he answered, it fits. But there he asked Bechlal, why do we make such a big fuss over it when really nothing changed? The Levaner is the same Levaner, just we can't see it. Now we could see it. But it's not something that is be'etzim essentially different that comes Kaim Mesira Bashlemusa. Before there's a big problem, the Levaner is small, and now the Levaner becomes big. Nothing happened here. And in the Kuda, the Rebbe said, which fits to everything that the Rebbe Bachal said, the tachlis of everything is to bring gilui, to bring the tachlis of a yid is to bring gilui lakus into the world. The tachlis of everything is gilui. And if it's a levana is there, the mitzias is there, but there is no giluyin that comes from it, there's no light that comes from it, it's missing the main point. And therefore, when you're able to have the light from it, that's an important point. That's why you make such a big fuss. And that fits to Bechlal. The Rebbe said the whole union of a Yid is to bring light into the world. The Kavanah of our belt is bringing Dira B'Tachtenim. If you can't do it, then you're missing the point. The whole point is Neiris Lahoyer, to bring the air. And if that can't be done, it's not. It's Al Derech. I'm just saying Al Derech, what the Rebbe explained in Geya Gimel Tammuz. Gimel Tammuz versus Yud Beis Tammuz. Yud Beis Tammuz is the Yont of the Chag Agula. But the Rebbe said, Be'etzem, we should make the Chag Agula, we should make Gimel Tammuz. Because Gimel Tammuz, he was freed from jail. And he was freed from the Psak Din of death, Chas v'Sholem. Hashenki, Yud Beis Tammuz, Avadi, he was in Kastrama, he was limited, but still, he wasn't in danger. His life wasn't in danger, so we should make the Yontiv Gimel Tammuz. And the Rebbe said, Chassidim should make that as a Yontiv. But why didn't the Rebbe, he said, why didn't the Frierdiker Rebbe make it into a Yontiv? That should be the Ika Yontiv. So he said, from the Rebbe's point of view, when he was in Kastrama and he was limited, he couldn't do his work of being Meifitz Yadus and Meifitz Chassidus, etc., then to him, he's missing the main point. And when he was freed from Kastrama, and now he's free to continue doing what he does, that's the book, that's the day. Because from his point of view, and the Rebbe said this is the hero we take from here, that's the tachlis. I'm saying so the same idea the Rebbe said here also, that the tachlis is that the Levana shines, it gives off light. If it doesn't give off light, it's more or less like it's not there. It doesn't have a tachlis. And that's the union of Chamishosar Ba'ov that the Rebbe explained what's the might of Chamishosar Ba'ov, which is the same thing as Shabbos Nachmu. Nachmu is also, what's the Nechome? We said Chamishosar Ba'ov is the Nechome on the Tisha B'Av. The Tisha B'Av was the Yerid, and this is the Aliyah. And the Nachmu is also the Aliyah that comes, so it's more or less the same thing, but different dargis. Obviously, you have to know exactly after Chassidus what's the difference in Nachmu and Chamishosar Ba'Av. And the Rebbe even connects it, not in this, like, but in different sichas, connects it to Nachmu twice. Because when Mashiach will come, it'll be everything will be kofel. So it's double Nechome, which is connected to the next one of the next haftarahs, Aneichum Nachemchem. Which, by the way, there's an interesting word that the Rebbe said from the Avudraham. Everyone knows this word, but it's good to repeat it from the Avudraham. But the Rebbe said this many times. But he said it many times. The Avudraham is some interesting word. When negay the Shivin in Nechemte, when negay the 7 haftarahs of Nechome. First haftarah is Nachmu Nachma'ami. Then comes the haftarah of Temet Tzion Zavani Hashem. Then comes the haftarah Neichi and Neichim Nachemchem. And then, first that is Tzion Lein Nechome. Let me take a chumash and see here. Okay, so we have Vaschanan is Nachmu Nachma'ami. Parshas Eikev is the haftarah. See here. Temet Tzion Zavani Hashem. Re'ei Leinochama, wie heet het de woorden? Let's see in here, end of Ray. Okay. Aniosoro Leinochama. The next one is Nechi Human Achemchem. That's the Shaftim. Kiseitse is, give me a second here. Oh. Kiseitse is Roni Akoro Leyalodo. And then Kiseitse and Kisove is the Haftere Kumieri Kivo Erich. Then Nitzovim says Osis Bashem. So the Avudraham explains that the 7 Hafteres go with the Seder. First thing is, the Eibusha says, Nachmu Nachmam Yemel Lekechem. Who's saying this? The Nevi'im, the Novi. Because he's saying, he's repeating, he says, the Eibusha says, Nachmu Nachmam. So he's talking to the Eden in the name of the Eibusha. So on that, that's the first Haftarah. The second Haftarah is Vatem Betzion Azvani Hashem. The Eden answer, you left us. Why are you sending us on the Chama through the Nevi'im? We want it from you. So that's Aschan Ekeb. That, and then comes Re'ei, that the Eibishter Taka answers. In Re'ei, it says that the Eibishter answers, Aniyu Sora Loi Nechama. You're right. You are Taka, the Nechama Taka is not in the Chama. Because that's not enough. So first he says, Aniyu Sora Loi Nechama Sareg. First he says, Nachmu Nachmam. Then he says, they even say that it's not good enough. The Eibishter says, you're right. That's the next one. Aniyu Sora Loi Nechama. Then comes Shaftim, where he says, and therefore, what's going to happen? I'm going to be menachem you myself. That's a nechi. Then after that comes 2, where the Eibush, the next 2 is different to nechamis because it's a nechi is twice. So the Eibush says 2 nechamis as the next 2. And Hashem, that they didn't answer. Oh, now we could be happy because now you did it. That's a word that the hemshech of the seven, but it's all negated to the double that it starts off with Nachman Nachma, then it goes to Nechum Nachemchem, and it's all this is the Nechama that the Eden get from the Eibishter. Now I just want to mention the Geya Shabbos Nachmu. The MS is that Shabbos Nachmu, the Rebbe didn't verbring so often Shabbos Nachmu. Later on, when if I bring every Shabbos, obviously, after Memches, if I bring every Shabbos, if I bring Shabbos Nachmu also. But till then, Shabbos Nachmu was not from those Shabbosim. There were times that he did, but not so often. Amol wasn't Shabbos Chazon, he didn't verbring, and Shabbos Nachmu. Then later became that he started verbring Shabbos Chazon, also not always, but I think it comes out, I can't say, I didn't look through the Cheshbenas, that could be Shabbos Chazon was more often than Shabbos Nachmu. But then sometimes he would verbring Shabbos Nachmu also. So Shabbos Chazon was in the Kudah that to take Chazon is the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, to take the Yonim of Avelis and change it over. Nachmu is Lachatchila Gilu. You don't have to work on changing it over because that's the Yonim of good. I'm just trying to remind myself which, from some of the Fabrings, one of the Fabrings I remember from Shabbos Nachmu was Tov Shinchov Tes. And why do I remember from that Fabringen? Because the Rebbe spoke then something interesting in Inyonim of Welt. It was a hemshech to a Fabringen that he said had Prashas Vayigash Tov Shinchov Tes. This was when the Geya, them landing on the moon. And Shabbos was Chanan, the Rebbe spoke about Tov Shinchov Tes. The Rebbe, they landed on the moon in Tov Shinchov Tes. Chov Tes is 1969, but the Shabbos Prashas Vayigash, I think, was still before, still 1968, whatever, but Aschana was half a year later or more, and that the Rebbe was Mamshich. What was in the Kudah that the Rebbe spoke? The greatness of them landing on the moon. So I remember the Fabring in the Shabbos Parashas Vayigash, and the Rebbe spoke about them landing on the moon and the heroes that you have to take from it. And then Aschana, the Rebbe continued. But one of the things that the Rebbe said then, and the Rebbe continued Parashas Aschana, was Negeya, somebody who claimed that this that they reached the moon is a stira to what we say in Kiddush Levana. In Kiddush Levana, we say, just like I'm dancing and I can't reach you, no enemy should be able to touch me to do anything bad. The shaila is, they used to think that you can't reach the moon, so it makes sense. But now they reach the moon, so how could we say it? So actually, the one that really, they ever didn't mention a name for Shteitza, but it was Shlomo Goren, not Rav Goren, who was, I don't know what he was then. I think wasn't the chief rabbi yet. I think maybe he was. No, I'm not sure. Maybe he was the chief rabbi of the army, whatever he was. But he was a choshev person, and he wrote that this is a raya that we have to change the nusach. And he actually said that in Mesichta Seifrim, there's a little different nusach. And we have to change it like there. Because you can't say, Ein Yochel Geabach. How could you say you can't reach the moon? We see it's against the Metzias. We could reach the moon. Never mentioned, I think, Toshem Pasha Vayigash also. But this time he spoke much more. He said very sharp words. He said to show that the person doesn't know the simple pshat of what we're saying, which every little kid knows. Ask any little kid, what is the taich of the words that we say in Kiddush Levana? The taich of the words is very simple. Just like I'm dancing to you and I can't touch you, so too no one should touch me. We're not saying you can't touch the moon. All we're saying is that you can't jump and reach the moon. That's what you can do. And that's true. And I remember the expression that Rebbe used. Und der Weile noch nicht gewähnt, als Yid, allein geweiße Bord, geht a Sprung, und kriegt auf der Levane. It didn't happen in the meantime that a Yid, alter Yid, should give a jump. That's what we do. It says you do 3 jumps before you say this, and then you say, Kishem Shanirei Keven Yochel Negeyabach. I'm dancing and I can't get to you. And the Weile that didn't happen. So how could you say that? But the Rebbe spoke very sharp against him. How could he write such a thing, saying that this is a nusach that's in the Kubal Bayidin for all the years? And you're going to say that it's wrong, because he tried to cover it up by saying Sido Agirse in Mechsichta Seifrim, which is a little bit different. And this is a raya that the girsa we had all these years was wrong, and we have to follow that girsa. And the Rebbe said, what are you talking about? This is the girsa that we have, all the Yidden throughout all generations are all saying this, then this is the right girsa. But you don't understand. You don't know simple pshat. He spoke he's saying like this. And he said, especially you should realize it, the pshat, because you live in a place. He didn't call him by name, but he said, you live in a place where this inyan, that the enemy should not be able to touch us, Lora, is important to you. You live in a place where there are enemies there. That's a throw, the enemies all around. So you should know better in the pshat what it means. And he was saying things like that. The Rebbe was very. Another Nakuda that the Rebbe brought out, I don't know, he was Meidech in this Fabrengen. I'm mentioning because his Pashas was Chanan, and this Fabrengen, he was Meidech more in the Fabrengen of before, but this Fabrengen also. And then there's in the letter, when the guy going up to the moon, he said that there are some people who became very mavulval, very mavulval. It brought them sveikis in the munah. Now that we're able to reach in the heavens, it's to reach the heavens. We knew the Eibishter in heaven. I don't know. So it says Hashemayim Shemayim Lashem Voras Nosam Livnei Yodam. How could you do it? So the Rebbe said, Punkt verkehrt. There's nothing new that happened here. There's nothing new that took place. It's the technology that we have just was a little bit another level that they took it, that they're able to go to the moon. There's no change in anything. Another Abba, the Rebbe said, the more that you see in the keiches hateva, all it is using natural keiches that they were able to develop, that's there to be able to reach the moon. The more you see the keiches hateva, the more verkehrt you should see godless Hashem. One of the things it says, how do you see godless Hashem? When you recognize Magodlu Masech Hashem, or Rabba Masech Hashem. What is saying Chassidus? Look at the Welt and the big Welt, and look how much things there are, and all that made by the Eibishter. Wow! And the more keiches you realize that there is in Teva, the more you see the godless of the Eibishter. So that's what this is supposed to do. So, but this is also one of the things that the Rebbe spoke about in this Pashas Veschanan. Now, in the Geya, the other thing, which again I said, which is more personal to me, but it's not personally to the point today. But the union of Yimaledes, I said that when you have a Yimaledes, you remind yourself of what Yimaledes meant years ago. This was years before the Rebbe made the Yemaledis as a minhoge Yemaledis. Was the idea of going into Yechidus. That when you came to your Yemaledis, everybody, every bocher or every person, Bechlal, had a chance to go into the Rebbe in Yechidus. So in our eyes, in our minds, the union of Yemaledis connects to going into Yechidus. Which means when it comes to a time like that, you try to remind yourself the union of going into Yechidus, what it meant going into Yechidus. So you just talk about the feelings that one had. And what I'm going to say is not me or anybody. This is all of everybody. Knowing from the time when we were Bocher in 770, how it felt when a Bocher was going into Yechidus. And these are things that you knew ahead of time because you know when your Yemaledis is. And the Seder was that the last Yechidus that's there before your Yemaledis, you would go in. Now, sometimes it could have been the night before if that was Yechidus. Sometimes there was no Yechidus at certain times. The 3 weeks there was no Yechidus. There was a certain month there was no Yechidus, and a week before if I bring in, like before you Bistamas, before you tried, there was no Yechidus. So you have to calculate and see when is the last Yechidus before my Yemaledis, and you would go in. Now sometimes it would be for different reasons that you go in earlier. Like myself, my Yemaledis, like I said, is tonight you'd base of, and usually I would go on Merkei Shlichus. And Merkei Shlichus, which was one of the things that the Bochum did, and so my Yemaledis happened to be in the middle of Merkei Shlichus. So I would go into Yemaledis before we would go to Merkei Shlichus, which sometimes would come out 2 or 3 weeks before the Yemaledis. But whatever it is, every Bocher knew when he's going in, and what happened was started the preparations for going into Yechidus. And this is something that was, you start thinking about it, a certain experience that you're able to, if you work hard on it, to experience now too, when you go to the oil. So if you want it, but it's still fought harder because we're Gashmasdika people and we relate to, when you see it, when you go into the Rebbe and you see the Rebbe sitting on his chair and you're there with the Rebbe, that we relate to more, even though Be'emes we know when you go to the oil, this is really Yechidus. Or I'll tell you, some people going into the Rebbe's room reminds you even more of Yechidus, because it's mamish the place and it's here. I know myself, when I go into the Rebbe's room, you get the feeling, it reminds you, those people are in New York and go very often. It loses a little bit because it becomes part of your shul where you daven. But if you don't go so often, so when you go into the Rebbe's room and you mitzayir yourself, automatically you don't have to work hard to be mitzayir. You just look at it, walk in and see the Rebbe's chair there, you mitzayir. So it brings you back to the feeling of Yechidus. So you could do that with Achonis, but it's still not the same. But I'm just saying, but when it was really, when you went to Yechidus, the feeling was of Achonis. You could tell on a bocher, without knowing, you could see on every bocher, you would see that he is ready to go into Yechidus. You could see that. Without knowing. The Ernstkeit, minimum days that a bocher would make Hachonis to go into Yechidus, the minimum was seven days before, a week before. And a week before would be a complete different siur. And the Lashon, the union of a week is written in the Friedrich the Sichas and the Rishim. It says, "Machnach Chassidim used to make Achonis for 7 days." I mean, the real Chassidim made Achonis for a year. Shisha Chadoshim, Shem and Ameh, Shisha Chadoshim, Rapsomim, Samruki Anoshim, wrote the Lashon in the Megillah, that to go into Yechidus, you had to prepare for 6 months and 6 months in different Avedas. And there were Chassidim that were prepared, they didn't go into, it's like a year, 2 years longer. But like the Lashon is that 7 days, and you could tell on the bocher that the bocher is going into Yechidus Rebbe. And this was even a simple bocher, not the big Avdim, because they knew that this is going into the Kedesh HaKadoshim. So the Hachonas that were there, the Ernstkeit, the Krish Mishalamite, the davening, the keeping Seder, that this was mamish, that by the time you went into Yechidus, you were mamish a kela for it. That's how it was. It's to remind themselves, how things were there, and when you went into Yechidus brings you back to the feeling of Iskashves, aside the feeling of Iskashves of the Rebbe, because when you walked into Yechidus, you really felt the Lashon where it says, "Ano Malke B'Chadei." I mean, the Rebbe said that if I bring him as Yechidus, actually somebody who wrote to the Rebbe after Yechidus stopped that he wants to go into Yechidus, and the Rebbe wrote, "Bevada Yinig Keminig Anash Bizman Ha'achrein Shenechnosim liyichides beis haisvades. For sure, you're going to behave like the minig of Anash now, that you go into Yechidus during Farbrengen. And there are many people that got answers before they had Shailas, and they would have normally asked the Rebbe and Yechidus, and on the Farbrengen that he came, they got answers to the Shailas. That happened. So that was Zeicha for it. Then you had dollars. Going by dollars was even more personal. But it's still different. It's still not the same. Standing in front of everybody, going for a second, they have to give you $1. I'm not talking about the Rebbe. Mitzad Rebbe, it's all the same. The Rebbe, the Hashpo is all the same. But Mitzad us, I'm talking Mitzad us, Gashmisnike people, that we relate only to Gashmis. We don't relate to things that, Veda, because we're not such big people. So Mitzad us, that's not the same. But going to Yechidus was something that was the feeling that you got and the achonas that people made. They felt that they're going into the Kedesh HaKadoshim. It's like it says in the Natomim, there I think it's Shmuel Leib who describes, when he went to Yechid, his father told him, how long Ariches, he came from Homle, and anyway, I think I mentioned it once before in Fabrengas, and it came out, and his father tried to explain to him what's so special about it. And he started explaining that we used to have a Beis Hamikdash, and there was Gilui Lakuz there, etc., etc. And now we don't have it. And the only place and the place now, which is like the Kedesh HaKadoshim, is the Rebbe's room. And the Rebbe is in the Kedesh HaKadoshim, like the famous story with the Baal Shem Tov also. Yeah, I think I mentioned it once before. And that's the feeling that you actually physically got to feel it. And it lasted for a long time. You didn't wear off. Not the pshat, you went to Yechidus and it lasted for a while. It didn't wear off. For months, it felt. So it doesn't last to that same geschmack the whole time. But for a long time, it was there. That every time that you would look at the Rebbe, by Mincha Ma'ariv, the Rebbe only did Mincha Ma'ariv, then upstairs, didn't Dam Shach was a minion, or by Kriyas HaTorah, when he would come, and you look at the Rebbe, there was a different outlook. You look at completely, looking a certain, you see Gilui Lakus. You would feel it. That's how you would feel. And that's connected to your Meledes. When I say over some things which I had when I went to Yechidus, just to review for myself. Remember before when I went to Meledes for my 18th birthday. Now those days, not every bar mitzvah bocher put them in the Tamsfilm. Used to be a mole, even in Lubavitch, they used to put on after the Chassan. Then it changed, I don't know what period or when it changed to 18 years old. But even when it was 18 years old, you would have to ask the Rebbe first. You would ask the Rebbe, and most times the Rebbe would agree. But it did happen sometimes that the Rebbe said no. Sometimes the Rebbe would ask, how often do you go to the mikveh? But the Derech he would say yes. I remember I went into my 18th birthday, so I asked the Rebbe, and I went in a few weeks before my birthday because I was going to Mekeshlichus. So I asked the Rebbe and settled if I should start putting out in Townsville. And the Rebbe said, das what the schreibst in our Townsville, so I should start putting up in Townsville. So I asked the Rebbe, should I wait till I become 18, or should I start putting on right away? So the Rebbe said to me, "Vos freie mit a Woch, vos freie mit a Tag, is alles besser." That the earlier with a week, earlier with a day is better. And we knew that the Rebbe gehalten, because the Rebbe wrote already in Tovshin Yud, not even Tovshin Yud Aleph, Tovshin Yud. The Rebbe was Magia, the first sichas from the first day, Sim of Shiva. So there's a horror that is about the Rebbe in the Tamsville, and the Rebbe writes, brings quotes about the Rebbe in the Tamsville, and he quotes from something that's, hard to repeat, but it says the Beir Eitev Ayoshin writes that if you don't put that in the Tamsville, you're a kakafta de limonach film, schwere wertes, sharp words. And the Rebbe writes, therefore, he doesn't understand why nispashan aminig and afila bein anash, that the minig is that you don't put on right away. But nevertheless, the Rebbe never changed. Till Tovshin Lamet Vov, which means 25 years it took the Rebbe to decide to change it. and make the meaning that a bar mitzvah bacher should put on in the town film from the day of his bar mitzvah. And when he said that, when he made the whole thing about it, it's meant that from the day of his bar mitzvah, but the 2 months before, not. Then there's a sicha that Rebbe wrote was magi, and then there's a order there that you should start together with Rasha's film. In other words, if it, like it says in Hogim that you start Rasha's film 2 months before your bar mitzvah, you should put it up in the town film also. So we saw right away, we knew the whole time that the Rebbe gehalten that you have to put it up in Townsville. But nevertheless, the Rebbe didn't change the minig. And the minig was that we put it in Townsville when you're 18. A little bit, this was a mile that when it came to Tovshin Chovhei, when the Rebbe down for the Omid, I said this over, I don't remember if I said it by one of these Fabringers or Yeshiva, I don't remember, that when it came to Shchedish, the Rebbe didn't down for the Omid. We didn't know what the Rebbe is, what the Rebbe is going to do, because he said Kaddish. So the first Kaddish, he didn't come out. He didn't come out. The Kaddish before Heidu, he didn't come out. We wondered right away, what's he going to do? Because he's missing a Kaddish. He doesn't come out. Maybe he'll come out to the Kaddish, go back into his room, and come out later to Kaddish to the other Kaddishim. The Pele didn't come out to Kaddish, to that first Kaddish. And what he did was, when he came to Mincha, before he started Ashrei, he said Mishnayis again and made up the Kaddish. Anyway, but what we were wondering, what is he going to do when he's going to come out? I guess he would come, but he didn't have the Shachas with the Minyan. He would come out, the Rebbe would come out to Kriyas HaTorah. But since he was saying Kaddish, he had to come out right before Kriyas HaTorah to when they said, after Hallel, the Minyan said, the Yom, the Rebbe would have to say Kaddish. And then it's Kriyas HaTorah. So the Rebbe came out to the time when the Minyan held by the Yom, said Kaddish, stood there for Kriyas HaTorah. Now what's going to happen? That's what we didn't know. What's going to happen now? Because after Kriyas HaTorah, he said Asher V'Otziyim, and everyone took up the tefillin, put that up in the Tom's tefillin. It takes a few minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, what it takes, and then they would start Musaf. But the Rebbe doesn't have to be there till the Kaddishim, till the Kaddish of Enkel Elokeinu. So what would we do? What would the Rebbe do from after Kriyas HaTorah, after they put the Sefer Torah back, till that? It's going to take 10, 15 minutes. So when the Chazan is saying the Chazoras HaShatz or the davening is one thing, but the time in between, what's going to happen? The time in between, the Rebbe finished saying Kaddish and they finished Avot Tzion, everyone is going to start putting on the Tom's film, taking off film, putting it in the Tom's film. It's going to take time. The Rebbe is going to stand there. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know if he's going to go out. So the truth is, Chaver in my class, we're still not 18 then. So we didn't put on him in Tom's film. So that was the Eitzah. The Eitzah was that as soon as I was in, everyone else ran out to the room, took off the film, the Asher's film took, 10 seconds, 20 seconds to take it off, and run right back, and the Chazan would start right, we get a Chazan to start right away. Shmoneh Esrei. Say Kaddish and start Shmoneh Esrei. So the Rebbe should not, so there was a mile that turned out by us not putting on in the Tom's film. But Lepeil, it was because we were not 18. So when I asked the Rebbe, when they gave me Tom's film, I should put on, and he said, "Vos freier mit atog, tavoch freier mit atog is besser." And he said that I should have my own to make sure, because if you don't have your own, you could forget. The Pale Mamish, in the first few weeks, one day I forgot to put them in Tom's film. So used to it, I forgot. So when Yechidas the next year, my 19th birthday, I wrote to the Rebbe, Yechidas, that I forgot to put on one day in the beginning, I forgot to put them in the Tom's film. So what should I do? I don't remember the Lashon I used, they said tikkun or whatever. So the Rebbe answered me, said, when he gave this was the Schreibst, in Tamstville, so he said like this. First of all, since you say it was in the beginning, when you started putting on, not so bad. Didn't I choose what he means, but I understand what he means. What's the problem not putting on? For 5 years after my bar mitzvah, I didn't put on, right? So there's another day I didn't put on. Why is it even a fuss? The answer is because when you start putting on, it's like a neder. You have to put it on now because you took upon yourself to put on. So that's what the Rebbe said in the beginning. Is because it was in the beginning, it's not so bad. He didn't use the word because it's not a neder yet, but still, he said still in the beginning, which makes sense. That's what I think he meant. So it's not so bad, I said. And then he said, what you should do is you should learn in Nigle the Hilchas Tefillin again. So Chazer over Hilchas Tefillin in Alter, and he said how you write the aleph beis, how you write the letters, and that's what he meant. And that's in Nigle and Chassidus. You should learn the Maimorim that deal with film. That'll make up. That's what he told me. That's the next Yechidus. A year later, the Negei in the Tom's film. The other thing he would say, the way it comes out, the Kvi is that Yud is many times it comes on Friday. It's a common Kvi is that it should be on Friday. So whenever I went to Yechidus and the Yimaletus was Friday, so the Rebbe, besides the things, the regular things that the Rebbe would say, the Yimaletus usually would say, we should have an Aliyah the Shabbos before, and you should get stuck here for Shachas and Mincha on the day. We should be Meisiv Shir and Nigla and Chassidus on that day, when they would give the bracha. So in addition to all that, we call it the standard stuff, if you want to call it standard stuff, the Rebbe also would say, and he told this to me a few times, that because your Yimaletus is Friday, make sure to be Mayor the Sedda on the day of your Maletus. So he said, because it comes on a Friday, which seems to be saying, that it means that be'etzem, it's not that gefährlich if you don't do it on Friday, because otherwise you got to do it on Friday anyway. It does say you should do it on Friday, you should do it at least before the meal of Shabbos, whatever. But on the other hand, there's a mile, a big thing in doing it on Friday. So that's what he said, to do it on Friday. So that's another union of Yechidus that the Rebbe said. One of the Yechidus, in 1 year I went to camp also. I went to Merkez, I went to camp. So when I went to Yechidus, before I went to camp, because you days are in the middle of camp, so I wrote to the Rebbe, I'm going to camp. I was going there to be together with Rabbi Galitsky. This was Tov Shem Zion, I think. Rabbi Galitsky, we were both learning directors in Gan Yisrael in Swan Lake. This was before Sparksville. So I wrote to the Rebbe, I'm going. So the Rebbe said to me in Yechidus, he said, Leave the first in camp, so to then machen a shir in Chassidus with the counselors. You should make a shir in Chassidus with the counselors. Now the problem is that it's totally in other people. You have to have people who want to hear the shir, who want to learn the shir. So actually, there were those years there were still counselors, not Lubavitcher. Bochrim from other yeshivas, Litvish Bochrim, who came as counselors. So actually, they were the ones that really happy to learn Shir Chassidus. I had a Shir Chassidus with these counselors. So this is just to be remembering of time when you went into Yechidus. Well, the personal shaykhus of the Rebbe comes to Yemaleda, since it's connected to Yechidus, it reminds you of the personal. Remember Tovshin Lamed Dalet. I don't think I ever said this over. It was a feeling I had. Tovshin Lamed Hey. The yeshiva started in Tovshin Lamed Dalet. Yeshiva here. For Tishrei Tovshin Lamed Hey, what happened was, the Rebbe wanted we should divide the Bochrim. There was only Shluchim then. Another 2 Bochrim. So the Rebbe wanted that the first half of Tishrei, half of the Bochrim should go. And the second half, they should come back for the second half, and the second half. And he said one is from Shabbos and Vorchim till after Yom Kippur, and the other, and they should go back, and then from Yom Kippur till after Simchas Torah, the other group should come. So that's what we did. And there were mainly only 2 Hanhola members then, myself and Rabbi Leib Schapiro. So we decided that we're going to do the same thing. You have to have somebody, even though they were shluchim and they were actually very mature Chassidish Gute Bochrim, that they don't really need somebody, but still, no, we felt so we divided, made a gedel. I got the first half, even though I really wanted the second half. I wanted the first half to be able to be. I wanted the second half. The gedel came out the first half. So I came for Shabbos and Vorchim, for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. I was supposed to go back for the second half, and Rabbi Title and Laser was supposed to come. The Pale Mamish, when it came to go back, I just couldn't bring myself to go back. I just couldn't bring myself to go back. To go back for Sukkot and Simchas Torah, go back to Miami. Now the Bochim, Metzuva ve'emed, so they went back. Another group came. So I remember I had gotten phone calls and I called Rabbi Title and I said, you come back, you come here. Do I really have to come back? The bottom line is I didn't go back and I stayed. And it bothered me so much because I knew I probably did the wrong thing. I probably did wrong. I should have gone back. But I remember Simchas Torah, and I had my place by Simchas Torah right in front by the beam of the Rebbe. And I'm standing there, and every time I looked at the Rebbe, with my stomach went because I knew this is wrong. And I'm standing. And then when they made an announcement, they gave out a kofis and they made an announcement who should be. So they said, for the Orchim from Miami. So I started going from there, I started pushing, and I turned around, and the Rebbe gave a look at me and gave such a smile. In other words, just to show the Rebbe, to make someone take away, the feeling from that moment on, it was okay. I didn't have that feeling anymore because Mama, she gave such a look, and I looked back, I was going, I turned around to look, and he looked at me, not only a smile, made something like that with his head, smiled, made like that. I think the Rebbe, went into the Emek HaNefesh and in other words, make a Yid feel good. Anyway, going back to the real thing, this is all expressing my personal things, but going back to Shabbos Nachmu and Chamisha Seba'ov, which all the theme of the union of Mashiach, which by the Rebbe, this was his whole life and everything, is Lahavi Kol Yil Mechayach Lahavi Meisa Mashiach. And it's by the Rebbe, you had two opposites. On one hand, there's so many biurim in Chassidus and in the sichas, the mile of Golus, the greatness of Golus. And in the Golus, you could see the Geula. And at the same time, the Rebbe was saying, how could you go with the Golus, and the Golus? You can't have it. It's both. In the Golus, you have to see it. And the whole beer of the Rebbe Menegeh, where it's also verbunden with Nachman, the Siva, Mesichte Makis, which everyone knows about, but just this chazer over the word, when Rabbi Akiva was Mesachik, when they came to the Beis Hamikdash and they were crying, the Chachamim, and he was Mesachik, and they asked him why you're smiling, or why you never used the Lashon of one of Fabrenges, but he had Siva Makis, he never used the word laughing. Rabbi Akiva Mesachik, he said Rabbi Akiva, gekwelt, ongekwelt. Gekwelt means, I don't know, I say it in English, gekwelt is not laughing, felt is enjoying or something like that. So the Rebbe explains. So he asked them, "Why are you crying?" So they said, "Why we're crying?" It's Beis Hamikdash. Why are you smiling, or why you? So he said, "Because I know that this proves to me that the nevuah of the Geula is going to come true." But the Rebbe is masbet. Not only he said that, what he meant was he saw in the Churban, he saw the Geula. He saw the truth. So looking at back, the same thing by the Rebbe, he saw in the Churban, he saw the Geula. So why is the Geula so important? So it's both. I said many times, but the Rebbe in the Sichas, this is the combination of two opposites, which are not really two opposites. By the Rebbe, that's an Inyan Ikri in a lot of the Sichas. The higher and the lower, the Ruchnis and the Gashmis, Shemayim and Oretz, all this, and this also. You have, if you really see in the Golus, you see the Geula, you really see it, not just, we say it also, but we don't see it. But if you really see it, then why do you really want the Geula? If you really see in the Golus, you see the Geula. It's al derech, the word, the story that the Maggid sent somebody to Rabbi Zusha, and Rabbi Zusha said, I don't know why he sent it to me. I never had anything bad because he had so much tzara, so much isurim, but to him, he saw everything good. That's a pshat that Tzaddik V'Tevlei, it's Tzaddik Gomer. The Tzaddik Gomer sees the good in everything. But maybe by him Taka, he never realized that Chaler is bad. So if that's what it is, so by the Rebbe, you see, he saw the like you said, the Aleph in the Geula, he saw the Geula. So one thing is for others, because others don't see, but even for him, upon him, that's Stam a Shaila how it works. But Lapel by the Rebbe, he saw the Geula, and that's brought him Taka to really need the Geula, even though he saw whatever the Hasbara is. I don't know, that everyone should think. But this is what Shabbos Nachmud is, this is what, so we have to make achlotas, and Aniyah B'teichom, especially achlotas, to add more in learning and davening, is kashrus, and that will definitely hasten the coming of Mashiach. We'll see the Rebbe again, and we'll see the Gula Shleima. L'chaim, l'chaim. Rabbi Frankfurter, Zay Mamshich.
I'm not going to speak a lot, so don't get too comfortable.
Oh, okay.
Just want to wish you, everyone else is muted, but in everyone's name, I want to wish you Shnas Hatzlacha, Begashmis, Baruch Nis, Yarachem HaMamlachte. And as I said before, now is a Mitzudosa Prus, I'll call, Kol Kadar Aretz.
Yeah, with this.
Or with the Zoom, everybody's thing. Just two things. You mentioned the sicha, the Rebbe spoke on the Rebbe since Yom Holedes. So I was in Crown Heights at the time. The sicha was in the morning. It was after. Yeah, that's sicha, Chavchei Ader. So I was walking in Kingston, and then the sign went on. So I walked into Amefitz, the old store, before they renovated it. And he had it on loudspeaker, so I heard the sicha over there in the store. The sicha with Yom Holedes. And I had for the Tefillin Rebbe Tam, I had the same thing also. It was a letter, though, I got from the Rebbe. I was traveling to Eretz Yisrael, and I made the mistake. I was still a young boy. I made a mistake to check in my Tefillin. And the luggage got lost, it got delayed, and I was not in a Lubavitch place, and I couldn't find Rebbe Tam. I borrowed Rash's Tefillin. I couldn't find Rebbe Tam's Tefillin. So I missed that day. And so I wrote to the Rebbe. That was the answer I got also from the Rebbe as in the letter. But I didn't know the loophole about being young. I was still 14, maybe it was, I don't know if 14, 15 maybe.
No, now it's different.
I understand. It was a bit later, but I was still right when I studied somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, in my time when you didn't do it for this, it's only because you accepted upon yourself. Now it's not like it's there. You have to do it.
I understand. But the Rebbe didn't tell me that solution. But, so that's it. Tonight is for you.
Wasn't there a meister with a vision of chassid? Over there, they have a minute to by the chasna they put on Ben Tam, and they have told him to put it by mitzvah. It was a whole meister. I don't remember the whole meister, and he had miracles. So a vision of chassid came by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told him, and he should put it on before his chasna. And that was a whole meister. I think that was a good thing. Anyway, okay. So maybe someone remembers. Okay.
Rabbi Shapiro, you mentioned that sicha about Rabbi Akiva as the very first Yom Leila Sameach Mazel Tov Shnas Hatzlacha, and thank you for agreeing to open up the share your wisdom and your thoughts and inspiration with everyone out there.
Puts me on the spot. I have to be careful what I say.
No, sister, they don't have to be careful. Feel bakvemt. Says a nash here. Says no, it's okay. Nobody's gonna come see you for anything. Don't worry. But that sicha is been. I think it's a very interesting sicha. But if you want to share with us a little bit more about that sicha, because the Rebbe asked some very interesting question. Why Rabbi Akiva asked them Bechlal why they're crying, and what is the avamina? Why they're crying, and the Rebbe explained. I don't know if you could elaborate a little bit more about that sicha. It would be greatly appreciated. It's a very, very geschmack sicha.
Okay, when Rabbi Frankfurter finishes,
I'm finished.
No, you continue, and then.
No, that's it. That's tonight. No, for sure not. Go on.
Yeah, but you said, Rabbi Yeruchman, you're right. The Rebbe asked the Shaila. What was the Shaila that he asked them? They asked him, Lo Mata Masachik, that's understood. What's that to smile about? But he asked him, Loma atam beichem. He didn't know. He didn't know why they're crying. He didn't know the Churban is Mikdash. And the Rebbe even says in the sicha there, the Gemara tells us first that he tore kriya when they came there, when they came to Seifim. So he himself tore kriya. So he knows when he did it, he forgot about the Churban. Didn't tell. What's the shaila? They're crying. And he asked the shaila on both. The first story of the Gemara with Hamein Shalzemi, and the second one. So then the kuda that the Rebbe says in the sicha there, if I remember correctly, is that he knew, but the shaila is the chilul Hashem that's there. That's what bothered him. When they asked, when he said Lo ma'atem beichim, why is that? What's the shaila? No, I have to remind myself. What was when they gave the first thing that Rebbe said? That was the chilul Hashem. What was the second thing when he said Lo ma'atem beichem? Someone remind me. Just what was the shaila?
No, you're right. About the chilul Hashem, that would bother them. Let me ask like, what really bothered them, and that they were crying, and they said because Rabbi Akiva is all Kol man David Achaman al Tav Ovid. It's all for good. Everything is for good. But they said what bothered them is still the chilul Hashem. So yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's the word. The chilul Hashem that's happening now. And the shaila that Rebbe makes there is a chilul Hashem of now, but because of that, later it's going to be better. What is gever? It's a word actually in Igla there also. What is gever? When you have a shaila of heve and osid, when you have a stira, which one is stronger? The now or the moshel in halacha? The Rebbe brings the example in halacha. If somebody comes to Tzem Gedalia, and the doctor says to somebody that if you're going to fast Tzem Gedalia, today you could fast. But I'm telling you, you won't be able to fast Yom Kippur. What should he do? Now, Tzem Gedalia is only the Rabbanon. Fasting Yom Kippur is a deraisa. Now, the deraisa is much stronger than the Rabbanon. So if you have a conflict in the deraisa and the Rabbanon, how do you have to do the deraisa? But the chilik is here that the Rabbanon is now and the deraisa is going to be later. So you have two ways to look at it. You could look at it one way like this. Now I could fast. Halacha is fast because when Yom Kippur will come, you won't be able to. Or we say no, we take now in consideration what's going to be later. Or like a bris, if later it's reason makdim in the mitzvahs, but if later you're going to have a bigger crowd, the Reibam had the smelach. So the shaila is what's gever, and that was the tutz dodim of the sicha is a long sicha, the tutz dodim of this thing. Now there's a chilul Hashem, but lapel later is going to be great giluyim. Is it kedai? So they felt, but since now there's a chilul Hashem, so as far as they're concerned, it's no good. They were crying. And he said no. He said that because this is going to bring later to greater giluyim, it's worth it. And the Rebbe says that Rabbi Akiva goes l'shitosei. Now the places where he says the same thing, that you look at the osid. And that's the bottom line, that Rabbi Akiva's derech was to look, to see, the osid doesn't only mean future, it means look what's deeper inside than what you see b'chitzenius. And then they agreed. They said Akiva nechamtoni. But that's the bottom line that the Rebbe brings out in that in that siyum on Masechta Makis is this nakuda to see in the churban that you see. As the kasha, he said, if I wouldn't see this, I wouldn't know if the nevuah of the gula would become true. And also, anyway, a lot of pratim in this. If I remember correctly, and I'm not sure if this is the one, but the Rebbe made a siyum on Makis. If anybody knows which year this Fabrengen is from, to see if what I'm going to say it fits. Maybe it wasn't this. I have to know. But on one time when the Rebbe made a siyum on Makis, the Rebbe's mother said to somebody, if nobody even made a hanocha from that, and the Rebbe said to her how much keiches he put into that siyum, and how come nobody is epis kochzach in them. So we have to know if it goes on this. When was this siyum said?
Yutzvat Tovshin Chavhei.
Yutzvat Tovshin Chavhei?
Yeah.
So it can be that it's this because she passed away. Vav Tisha Chavhei. So it can be that some months before when he said a siyum. But on one of the siyum on Makis, I remember it was Dafka Makis. Maybe I'm mistaken. That she said over that the Rebbe mentioned to her that he feels bad that no one wrote it down. when he put so much keches in, it was so maybe it's in the other seam. I don't remember. I think may represent this how much, but the mile of this seam that this brings out the Rebbe's cook and everything. This seam brings the cook of the Rebbe. That and you could see it to be it's like a koch when he said it. The way Rabbi Kiva saw things, that he saw everything, the depth of everything, the emes of everything, and he saw the good that's in everything. He connects it to, and he said, that's what he instilled in us, how we should see the things. We should also see it like that. So he wants us to see the geula in everything, and everything is good, and at the same time, to scream, we want Mashiach now, and to Tanemes to say that we want. It's not an easy Aveda. But like the Rebbe said quite a few times, that Ayid is a Neshama, and Neshama is a Chelik Kamimal, and the Eibishter is Neisa Hofchim, so every Yid could be Neisa Hofchim, and you have these two things. He said, L'Moshe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, they once asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he came out with Alagula, with Lauter Lagula, Lauter Tshuva, Lauter Lagula, so he came out, and at the same time, he was saying Mashiach is coming now, and he told people about building tools and doing things like that. So they asked him, how do you just said Mashiach is coming, how do you do? So he says that no stira. Mashiach is coming, we have to know. And the Eibusher wants us to behave in Derech HaTeva, and Derech HaTeva, we have to take care of things and do it. So, and both have to be with an emes. That's if one would be have to be with an emes, and one has to be superficially. Look, both with an emes. How could they both be with an emes? How could you see in Shabbos, in Chazon, in Shabbos, in the 3 weeks and the 9 days, you could see the Eimek Hadover, that this is the stepping stone to the Gula, and at the same time feel so bad. How could we be in Golas, and it should be like the virus? How could you be in Golas? When will this whole thing stop? Obviously we can't. The Rebbe Montas. This is what we're supposed to take out from a time like this. So when it comes to Nachamu or of, when it's dealing with the here, it's already not dealing with Churban, and we have to see the Gula in the Churban. We're dealing within the Chamen. So we have to see it that way. We have to do it that way.
Rabbi Schapiro L'chaim.
Chaim v'livrocha.
It's Ami Levine wishing you a Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
Should be Yarichem Malachto, Vishtoch Brius Nechona, Orichem Vishadim Toivus, and everything should be good. It's a pleasure being part of your community under the Hashpos. So L'chaim.
Anyone else want to say something? I'm not talking to say something to me. Say something about the Geya, the Inyonim that were involved. This is basically getting close now to Elul. The next step is, besides after Chamisha Sabov, is Chof Ov. And I have to tell you, from Chof Ov on, starts Elul. Many times at the end of the Farbrengen, the way I remember, from the years that I remember, the end of the Farbrengen of Chof Ov, first the Rebbe spoke Chof Ov and all the Inyonim. And at the end, he told to sing Avinu Malkeinu. But in Gezen, that's it. Now starts the Aveda of Elul. Already Elul, and it's another Aveda.
Didn't it start at Tu B'Av?
Rebbe says in the sicha that Chof Ov, some people would make Hatoras Nedorim. There's a meaning in some Sfarim, make Hatoras Nedorim, a Chof Ov, because it's Arboyim Yem Kedem Yitzira Savlad. It's 40 days before Rosh Hashanah, just like we find the Cheshbon of 40 days before Yom Kippur. From Rosh Chodesh Elul, there's a Cheshbon of 40 days before Rosh Hashanah, that's from Chof Ov. What were you going to say?
Didn't it start from Tu B'Av?
He said a few times, yeah, that you could wish. He quoted the Munkacheret. You could wish Aksiv Achsim Teva from Chamisha. Actually, Munkacheret writes that said that Chamisha Osabov is the Gematria Aksiv Achsim Teva.
Yeah.
So it's there, but that's something. But B'derech Klal it was because Chof Ov Rebbe still spoke about the oven. Yeah, he said more than once that from Chamisha Osabov you could start wishing Aksiv. So yeah, David Evel starts there also.
By the way, that sicha there that you mentioned, Rabbi Akiva, the Rebbe also connect the idea Nichamtana with the word Nacham twice.
Right. Right.
At the Tisha Chamisha B'Av is the Rebbe lot talked to Koch Tzichalak with Kalamesik Mina Leile Salayam. Can you talk about it a little? Can you mention a little bit about it?
A lot. Man the Yosef, man the Meis Yosef. Yeah. And the Meis design. Yeah, a lot of them. I heard the Fabrengas were came out Shabbos sometimes, and even in the weekdays there were certain Fabrengas. And just like the Rebbe would call the Torah and Torah Eid, the Chassidische Parsha, there are some that every Indian, everything, the Pag every time would learn the Inyanim of the Rebbe and that Inyan. There's so much, and, see, Shari HaMeyadim that gave out is a big mile, that it has like a collection of all the sichas, when you get all the different Yom Tovim. But when you learn the sichas and the different Yom Tovim, you get a different outlook. To learn Chassidus, everything is based on Chassidus. Rebbe didn't Chadash Chidushim, Epizinaye, Dargis, in Velcha Darge, in Nisgale, in Purim, it's all from Chassidus. But he put it down in such a way that we could relate to it with Hasbara. So when you learn it in the Maimer, look at the Torah and Maimer and Torah, and then you learn about the Yom Tovim, it says, it's Dargis. This is the Dargis, Tivisatik, and this is the Dargis, Arich, and this. And it tells you how the Yom Tovim are. But it doesn't really give us a look on Yom Tov, us from our eyes. Because, yeah, in Kabbalah state, was very we learned. Now, beer in Chassidus, we don't really know what's talking about. That's why the Alter Rebbe said when asked what Mashiach will come, he said that because now we learn things we don't really understand it. Learn about Ati. We heard Mashiach will come, we'll see. Those see those. So now we don't really know. But the way the Rebbe's masbir these inyonim brings it down, the same inyonim, it brings it down in such a way that you have a different outlook on a yontif, on everything. Remember, sometimes the Maimer, not of Russian, but of Erev Russian, the Rebbe would say a Maimer, so it were quite a few times. And that was masbir, was Tchiasis. So you would think, going into Russian, now you see what Russian is. So the big Chassidim used to take it from the Alter Rebbe's Mamorim, like the Shai with the Moshe Vilenker. I said, Russian, he was once going on a trip, and it was out of Russian, and something, they were delayed, and he's going in a wagon, and he was in the wagon together with the Radal. The Radal was Reb David Luria, he was Litvish for the Gdelim, and he was the Rav in Bichav Yoshan, and they were going, and they saw it's getting late. So the Radal tells the driver, stop. I will be stuck in a place where we won't have a shefer, but that's the din. You can't go chutz l'tchum to do the mitzvah shefer. That's the din. And the Moshe Vilenker started screaming on the driver, go, Schnell, go, don't stop. And he said to him, where even go? So he says to Radal, he couldn't pronounce a reish. But he couldn't pronounce a reish. So he said, ich habe gehört von ihm, der Minja von Schäfi, von jedem. Ich habe gehört von jedem, der Minja von Schäfi. Muss haben Schäfi. He couldn't say Reish. He called Yebe. He couldn't say Rebbe. Schäfer, he couldn't say Schäfer. He said Schäfi. But he knew what Schäfer is. He can't, no matter what, to go to the prayer. I don't know the end of the story. I think they managed to get it before Yom Tov, whatever. I don't know. I know the end of the story. But the word is, so they took it from the Alter Rebbe, Maimer, Masbir, the Inyonim, in Atik and Arich, but to us, when you look at it, learn the Rebbe's Inyonim, Shefer, everything, and El, it speaks to us. Anyway, the Rebbe should help him. We should take it all seriously, take it to heart, and do the right thing. Do the right thing. And you have to add in learning. And learning the Rebbe's Torah, that's Avada. No, l'chaim.
This is a Nakuda, it's very true Nakuda that you bring up with Shari HaMeyadim, that it makes it so easy. You don't have to learn an entire sicha. You could learn a chelik from the sicha.
Yeah.
To understand, I remember, myself, I started watching the Rebbe's Farbrengen before Yom Tov, before Sukkot. The Rebbe had like all Farbrengen there, and it's talking about how on the Nakuda of Sukkot, you have to bring out the simcha of Sukkot to everyone. Shiyode Magas Sham. So there's a lot of prisons here, but I don't have the time. A lot of prisons around here, and I don't have the time to go because they are far and this, and I have a lot of other things I'm doing. But I was so inspired by the sicha, I said I have to go visit the prisons. So it's like Pashat, the Rebbe's talking to us. When you listen to Rebbe's Farbrengen and Chabad.org, they have these videos for every Yom Tov and K'toim, and it's inspiring us. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, you got to do that.
And you have the
And you know what? The Nefesh Abamis enjoys it also. It's a Poshet Gishmak.
it's just
You know, sometimes I tell you, you learn these in Yonim, anything. You learn a Rashi. Hey, emotionally sure, I said over a Rashi. Now I speak much shorter than I used to. Now, after the corona is often couples, the COVID, and it's macht mich schon alt, and you can't have a normal life. So later I was talking to somebody. The genius of it, the brilliance of the way that every masber avort in Russian and every word is meduyik and it fits like a posher geschmack. It's geschmack. So that's what it is. So the Nefesh Abamis could gain also, but the Bible gives you an insight in how you're supposed to behave and what the yontiv is, and it makes you have a different outlook on life. All right.
Sure. The Chelige test, the sicha there for Rabbi Akiva, it's such a geschmack of sicha, push develop geschmack. I still remember in yeshiva when I listened to you Adronim that you taught us in yeshiva, mamish Adronim. Yeah, you do a sicha, you teach a sicha every week on Wednesday, right?
Came out last week, not it was Tisha B'Av, but like this week, yeah.
We have to open this to the Welt Echet, you know. So
open, I think. I don't know, whatever. That's not
Rabbi Schapiro.
Yeah.
Chassidim are asking for the daily audios, the daily voice notes. We missed the daily dose.
It stopped when this whole thing started, this whole mishmash started. So I was involved in this, and then I stopped for a while, and I started, I don't know if they sent it out every day. To the shul I did, every day it's a different word from the Rebbe Abitochen. But I think they didn't, my son didn't send it out, I don't know why, to everybody. So that was about for 25 days, and then I got stuck and I didn't continue. I have in my mind to start, it's not simple. I have to, what I do? Every time I remind myself, I would make a siman, and then later, so I have to put myself to it without zutragen to them. Jetzt Hashem bli neder. Yeah, kol tuv. A gute Woche. Yeah, a good year.
You mentioned the story about with the shofar.
Yeah.
Today was the Yudalef was the yahrzeit of Bill Parcher.
Yeah.
So the Maisa, he was traveling from his town to Lubavitch, and he was very close to Shabbos. He couldn't get in. Nobody wanted to take him, and there was one young man said, "I'll take him on two conditions. Number one is that we have to go Derech HaMelech. We didn't go on the main highway to Nikolai. The second one is don't have Marichas. The whole stuff Maisa, the Leipzig, the whole fair in Leipzig. So what's that fun to Leipzig? What was that? Was that fun to Lubavitch? And that was, yeah. So the Shema you mentioned about the horses, the shofar remind me of the story of Bill Parcher. Halbe Rebbe.
Yeah.
That's how that is.
I remember Gordon, one of the times of with Aleph of, he wrote down a whole list of stories that he remembered that he heard on the Gate of Hill. And I spent it someplace, but he wrote it down. I remember the date he wrote Yud Aleph of. I remember which year. So the Chof says something Yud Aleph of the yahrzeit. And you're talking about by the way, they found the real kever now, because till now they have a oil that they made lately on his kever. They figured out where it is, but now they found no, they didn't find it yet. No, mixing with the Badichev. No, there they found, but that showed me that Lav Dafke, when they think it is, but they found Be'erech where Hil's kever is. I was there.
It's by Ditchwood, they just found the right one.
Ditchwood, they found that, because I heard that when they say that this is the cave at Lav Dafke, they figure out the Erech. And this is the best raya. But Ditchwood is right that when they were standing on the cave until now. I'm saying, but they were Hillel also Be'erech, but they made an oil. I think in Cherson. So they lately, Mamish, they just put up an oil by his cave. And he was like that. Alter Rebbe said, a halber Rebbe. All right, yeah. Gute Woche.